All right, so today we've got another post to talk about, and this one comes from an anonymous poster on Blind, and he asks, how big of a problem is the hiring slowdown for new grads who want to work at FANG? FANG being the big tech companies, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google, although I think there's now probably a new acronym for the big five. But anyways, let's jump right into the video. All right, so let's go ahead and check out this thread. So he goes, I just graduated and have been practicing lead code. Wow, this guy's definitely a geek. As well as system design with the hope of getting an interview, then an offer from a FANG company. It sounds like he's an engineer and going for a junior software engineer role. With all this news about layoffs and hiring slowdowns, I'm thinking that the last devs that companies would want to hire are new grads, seeing as we have no industry experience. There's some truth to that. Can anyone share some input or advice? If you work at FANG, are you seeing a slowdown in new grad hires? Hashtag Apple, Amazon, Google, Meta, so on and so forth. All right, so this guy is either a graduating senior, or someone who recently graduated. He's studying code and he wants to go work for a big tech firm, which makes a lot of sense. He wants to get the big paydays. He wants to get the nice job and just jumpstart his career and make that six figures immediately right out of school, which is something that if you've got a very specific skill set, then these tech companies will definitely pay you for that. So I actually have an unpopular opinion, and I think for a lot of new grads, joining a big tech company isn't always a good thing. What happens when you join a big tech firm is that you get this amazing salary, and for a lot of these big tech companies, especially Google, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, they're going to have really nice pay packages. And that's something where it's just not the norm for someone who finishes and gets right out of school. I remember when I first got my first job, I was making around 45, 47K out the door. And I thought that was a lot of money. But these days, graduates are probably expecting at least a minimum six figures, maybe even more than that for this first job. And so what happens is that they use that as a starting point, and it's very hard to go down from that level. The other thing that you need to consider is when you join a big tech company, they tend to spoil you. You get a bunch of perks, benefits. And what I've seen is people who go into these tech firms, after a few years, they have a sense of entitlement. And they're like, hey, I deserve this. And it's going to be very hard to change that mentality when that's all you've been used to. The other big thing that you need to consider is, big tech is great, but you're also not going to be as able to learn as much at a big company than a smaller company. Typically, the bigger the company, the longer it takes time to make decisions than to get things done. And there's just not going to be as many opportunities when you go to a big tech firm as opposed to maybe a startup. And so that's also another consideration that you need to consider. But to answer this guy's question, in terms of the slowing of hiring across the board, I would say that's definitely the case. Not just for new grads, but across the board. And this is not just for engineering roles, but also for product roles, sales roles. I think most companies are realizing that we're, in a recession now. We've had 2 quarters of negative growth, and it's not just new grads who are impacted. Overall, I think there's just a lot of uncertainty in the market, and big tech is definitely not immune to that. And so either freezing or cutting headcount is what a lot of teams are doing. And that's something that you need to consider. Not all companies are cutting or freezing. I know Amazon is still hiring, but they have plans to cut back a little bit or to make more use of the resources that they already have. And, for new grads or for interns, I know that those are treated a little bit differently, but for new hire headcounts, they may or may not be part of the overall OpEx budget. And so it really kind of depends. But as a student who's trying to get into a company, you're not really going to be privy to that information. So you just have to do your best job and play it by ear. The other thing you want to consider is that it's definitely going to be a lot more competitive. So the imperative is on you to really stand out. And if you don't have any experience, it's really going to be hard to impress the recruiter unless you just have an awesome resume with, things that you've done or companies that you've built. And so my personal advice to the OP on this one is, just really focus on your portfolio. And, if you're an engineer, continue to build, cool stuff that you can add to your CV. You might also even want to consider adding additional tech stacks or new coding languages to your tool belt. I would also recommend, if you have the time and the expertise, to maybe even build your own app or a website, or build a digital presence. Maybe even start a YouTube channel and teach something. There's a lot of things that you can do in your free time that will definitely help you stand out, because I can definitely tell you when times are tough, things are going to get much more competitive, and it's going to require you to stand out above the crowd. I would also recommend to see what other companies are hiring. Websites like Blind is a good resource. LinkedIn obviously is the world's biggest professional social networking platform. So definitely spend your time networking with other classmates, with alums from your schools, and people who work already in the industry that you want to connect with. I think it's really important to know how to network. You just don't want to reach out to them blindly and say, hey, can we chat? Or, can you help refer me to your company? But do it the right way. Really make an effort to engage with people the right way. Try to find ways that you can add value and continue to stay engaged with the community is what I would say. And the last thing I'll say to this guy is just be patient, man. I didn't get into Fang on my first try. I worked for a lot of different companies before I got into my first big tech company. And even though it's great, it's just like any other big company. There's going to be a lot of other opportunities down the road. And, once we get out of this recession, there's going to be a lot of companies who are looking for talent. So, you've got a good skill set, man. Coding and engineering skills are always going to be in demand. And so I think you chose the right major. And if you're a good engineer, your skills are going to be sought after wherever you go. Don't be too picky. If you get a great opportunity to go work for a non-Fang company, that can also help boost your resume and get you the experience that you need. And so best of luck to you, man. And, hopefully you get into your dream job soon. Anyways, guys, that's my advice for this OP. Let me know if you guys thought this video was useful. Drop a comment down below, like the video and share it, subscribe if you haven't, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.